Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me. It's Allan Laboucan with the Rocks and Stocks News Show. We've got one of my favorite guests on the show today, and Rob McEwen from McEwen Mining. And why I like to have Rob on the show so much is because Rob's been a mine finder, a mine builder, an operator of one of the lowest cost gold mines in the world at the time it was under his supervision. And an avid investor in the space. And he always gives us insights into how he goes about investing in the space and operating a company in the space. And I think that's tremendously good information for our audience. So on behalf of my audience and myself, Rob, thank you once again for being gracious with your time today.
Well, thank you for your continuing interest, Allan.
Well, and it's hard to ignore, Rob. You keep on putting out excellent information. Just last week, we were talking about some drill results you had at your gold project stock. And then yesterday, you announced that Nuton is putting another $10 million investment into McEwen Copper.
Well, McEwen Copper has been the recipient of some large financing in the last 10 months. Nuton, which is the technology venture of Rio Tinto, put in 10 million, and Stellantis, and Nuton's already a shareholder in McEwen Copper, but Stellantis came along and at the same time put in 42 billion Argentinian pesos, which at the official rate would be 120 million. At the black market rate or the street rate, it'd be about 50 million.
In Argentina.
In Argentina, and we can use those funds to advance the project towards the feasibility study. So, we've been quite fortunate to be able to raise money, and I think that's due to the Los Azules project is such a large copper play with very robust economics, and that's why it's attractive to second largest mining company in the world and fourth largest car manufacturer in the world.
And this is the third investment by Nuton, right?
Yes, it's the third. It's the second by Stellantis.
Right. And what I found very interesting in the news release, Rob, is that the valuation that they're putting on the company right now prices McEwen Mining's interest in McEwen Copper at less than they paid a premium. So it's like your gold operations the investors are getting for free right now.
That's for sure. I look at it. I mean, when we separated the copper from the precious metals, my thought was we needed to finance it separately. And in doing so, the market would start seeing its value, because that value had been obscured by operating issues, challenges in the precious metals division. So now, yes, as you say, the copper has a value. Our interest in the copper is worth more than our market cap. And we have, mines in Canada, the United States, Mexico, and Argentina.
What I also find very interesting about this is that Nuton is working on some very unique proprietary mining methods. And during the time that they've put extra money in, they've been working on your material. Do I have that correct?
It's not so much the mining, it's the processing of the ore.
Yes.
They're using a biological process to leach the ore once it's been crushed. And they feel they can move from the traditional recovery rate associated with leaching to a higher recovery rate that's associated with conventional milling. We chose to go through the heap leach process, one, because it used a lot less water in an area that's challenged for water. It's faced drought for 3 years. So water is very critical to get the social license. 2, there's no tailings dam in an area that has seismic activity. And in a conventional mill, you'd be looking at a 300-meter or over 1,000-foot high dam holding back tailings. So there's no tailings, so you don't have to worry about that breaking and running downstream and polluting the water and that. It's less capital, and it uses less power. So there's less carbon. There's all the power we're getting in is going to be renewable from hydro, solar, and wind. So we're producing a mine that's going to produce a concentrate, not a concentrate, but rather a cathode, whereas the conventional mine produces a concentrate that then has to be transported to a smelter and refined into its final form. We'll be producing the final form at the site. So there's lots of advantages to what we're doing there. We'll be producing what might be called green copper.
You don't have to ship that material all over the world to turn it into copper.
That's right. That's right.
And the process really has me intrigued, Rob. I spent a good portion of my career in diamond exploration, and you're looking for tiny little things and how to get them out of there is very important, that you don't break them and stuff like that. So processing is very something that I watch very closely. And the benefits or the potential benefits of their method gets the material out faster and more recovery, which goes right to the bottom line.
That's their sales pitch. Much faster recovery and a higher recovery rate, so more copper. They're going through testing right now, and they're moving into phase 2 of their testing, and we'll have a better sense mid next year how it's going.
Well, they have to be seeing some encouraging signs to keep wanting to invest in McEwen Copper. I think that's safe to say.
It appears that way.
Yeah, and so maybe next year we could start to see some data on what they're working on. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. You know, from when I look at your website quite regularly, and one of the things I like is the rendering that you have of what you're working on. Whether you're looking at getting the rock out of the ground and processing it, and how you have people, you're really working to have a mine of the future. And you have a project that could last many decades or generations, so it will be in the future. I find that very impressive as well, Rob.
I'm quite excited by this project because we do have the opportunity to change the way mining operates and hopefully is perceived by the general public. That mining is something that we need, and most people are unaware of that, but modern civilization is based on what we take out of the ground. And if we were to stop that, we'd start going backwards in terms of our standard of living.
Rapidly.
And I was intrigued by a comment by Mark Werner, who's in Google, and he's head of their circular economy, their sustainable area focus. And he came out several weeks ago and he said, you know, if we want net zero, we have to have more mines. There is not enough metals on surface to be recycled to satisfy that energy transition that is envisioned to protect our climate. So if you can move in that direction faster, and we don't have a mine built right now, so we can use the latest technologies and the most sensitive to the environment to move forward. And I may have mentioned on an earlier interview that we brought in an architect who's considered the Steve Jobs of the green living sustainable building space and just said, okay, help us redefine mining. And that's the course we're on right now. And perhaps one day what we do will be one of the models mining uses to present itself to the public in the future.
And to me, Rob, it's not just the net zero efforts that are important. There's a big world out there that many in the West kind of forget. And that is that there's a lot of people in this world that don't have all the modern things that we have. And in order to bring that to the rest of the world, which improves the living standards of the world, brings down the death rates, all of these beneficial things, mining is crucial.
It is. And we just want to have a smaller impact.
Right. And the other goal, I think, is an important one, is that it helps the people out there understand more about not just how important mining is, but that it can be done differently. And maybe this will start to bring more investors into our space, which is sorely needed.
Well, we're facing a real crisis, at least in the developed world, in terms of labor. They're at one end of the workforce, the demographics, there's a lot of retirement occurring. So those with experience and knowledge are leaving. And there's been a huge drop in enrollment over the last 20 years going into the mining schools and schools of geology. So just when you need more people with skills to bring on more mines, we're losing a lot. So we need to get the youth excited about mining in a positive way, not their current negative way, and say, look, there's a broad diversity of skills that are required, and we need their passion, their skills, and the attitude to protect what we're doing.
Well, I'm kind of I've seen how long this has been a problem, Rob, because I started in the mining business in my late 20s in 1993. And that was during the period of what was called the lost generation now. And that really hasn't improved over the years. And now the ramifications of that lost generation, the guys that were in it before me are all retiring. And there wasn't enough people in my demographic getting into the business in the 1990s. And this is a serious long-term problem. Maybe the thing that the passion that's always excited me about the business is the treasure hunt. And yes. I don't think that the treasure hunt that story is told enough about what mining really is.
Well, as you know, there can be explosive financial results in terms of when the market turns. These small junior companies can just explode in value on the upside. There is some that implode.
Yeah.
But no, there are numerous examples of terrific runs that are similar to what we've seen in the tech market, and maybe not as much in the crypto, but that's very rare. But just big opportunities to make money. And I happen to think we're at one of those times where most people are ignoring the space, the junior exploration companies, and they're very inexpensive. But the upside, once this gold market turns, which I'm confident it will, and continue upwards, there's large potential for big gains there.
And the ignore part is quite tremendous right now, Rob. It's really been pretty dismal out there for the explorers. There are some that are getting their head above the water and looking like even in a bad market they can perform good. So they're likely the winners. But from a structural perspective of the mining business, I'm so passionate about exploration because I think that's the most crucial thing needed in the mining industry right now is more mines being found. We're seeing that with copper. McEwen Copper is got something that every major mining company needs in the copper space.
Yes. I think your viewers need to be, well, I'd like to send out a warning that when they're looking at juniors, they should take a close look as if the juniors sold royalties or metal streams to finance. And there's a real danger right now with the shortage of capital available to the juniors and the streaming and royalty companies having big treasuries that it'd be too tempting an offer to ignore, and people will jump in. And when they do, I believe they give away the upside, considerable upside on their companies. They'll come out and say, well, we didn't have to issue shares, it's non-dilutive, but they gave away the upside, and they also gave away some of the downside protection. They're saying, well, we'll sell off, we have a multi-mineral deposit, we'll just sell off, well, if we have it's gold and silver, we'll just sell off the silver, or it's copper and gold, we'll sell off the gold. Yeah. And you can see in the market this huge divergence in value placed on the shares between the streamers and the royalty companies. Not to say they're not a good place to invest for an investor, but the producers are way down here and the streamers are up here in terms of share performance. So I think you just want to be very careful you don't get into a situation where a junior is giving away the upside through a royalty and a stream.
Yeah, that's one of the structural problems. Another is the way that, and Robert Friedland talks about this quite often, about net present value and how investors look at opportunities. And what is happening presently is not so much important as what is happening in the future for an exploration company. I try to put it into, I had the great pleasure of working with great geologists, geophysicists, geochemists, and I like to look at the project as an individual, and what would this look like in a mining operation, and of the future. And I don't think that that's done enough in this space these days. You are a perfect example. When you talk about McEwen Copper, you translate that into what it would look like as a gold project. And it has a tremendous numbers as a gold project.
Oh, it does. I mean, I look at most deposits, when they're not gold, I try to turn them into a gold, or view them as what they would look like if they were a gold equivalent. So I would take the gold price and divide it by the copper price and come up with how many pounds of copper equate to 1 ounce of gold in value. So if you look at what we have at Los Azules, it's over 70, it would be equivalent to over a 70 million ounce gold deposit. Based on the numbers in the preliminary economic assessment, it'd be producing 800,000 ounces of gold a year at a cost of under $600 an ounce cash. All in would be about 850. It'd be running for 27 years. Production would be lower in the latter part of it, but still 2.5 billion capex would pay back in 3.2 years.
With an IRR of like 100%.
Well, not quite that, but
Okay, kid.
It's a good, the economics are very robust, and it's long life. It's in the lowest quartile of the cost curve, or projected to be. And it's one of the largest undeveloped copper deposits at the moment in the world, in the top 10. So that's what you want. If you want long life, low cost, short payback, and high rates of return.
And if you take all those top 10 or even the top 20 or maybe even the top 50, they don't even begin to replace what the industry needs to meet the demands of the future.
A lot of the projections are we're going to have a deficit there of supply. So that suggests we're going to see higher prices.
I love the sounds of that, Rob. And, you know, another thing that I see from a big picture perspective is you do your part as as someone who's made his wealth in this industry, and you're putting money back into exploration. You're always willing to listen to a news story. Tell us a little bit about why you're always interested in listening to a news story, Rob.
You never know what's going to come through the door. And particularly at times when no one's looking at the sector, you can acquire substantial interest in junior companies for not a lot of money. And maybe I'm just an optimist. I've seen these cycles, lived through a number of them, and experienced the type of run that you can have. And it's very exciting. It's very rewarding. And then it allows me to invest in causes for society like healthcare and education and arts and leadership programs that I think will benefit a larger whole.
Tremendous stuff, Rob. And as always, I really appreciate your insights. I think it's a crash course for investors out there of how to look at mine builders, mine operators, and explorationists.
Well, that's very generous of you, Allan.
And you're always very generous with your time, Rob. And as I started out by saying, you guys are always putting out a lot of great news, and I really appreciate that you use our platform to come and talk about that beyond the news release. I think those insights are great stuff.
Well, thank you very much.
I'm going to close it off, Rob, and we can chat at the other end for a couple minutes if you'd like.
Sure.
Okay, folks. So as I started out, Nuton putting more money into the third time now, putting money into McEwen Copper at a valuation that's greater than the current value of McEwen Mining. So not only are you getting a discount on the copper, you're also getting the gold operations for free. And I see some tremendous opportunities in the gold assets that McEwen Mining has that are not being appreciated. In fact, I see some parallels to the early days of Rob's former company, Gold Corp. Gold Corp sort of started at the top, let's say within the first few hundred meters. And then when they got deeper, things really took off. And the mines that they have in Ontario have what I think are similar characteristics. So I think that they're worth a lot more than free. And that's what I think collectively makes McEwen Mining an excellent opportunity for investors. And I invite you to do your homework on the company and speak with your financial advisors before making any investment decisions. And I also encourage you to go to McEwen Mining's website, because the way that they present the story is sort of a model of how to look at these kind of companies. And they do a wonderful job of it. So on that note, have a great day, and we will talk to you soon.